Hey guys, I'm Dementia Jump, and today I'm doing my top 5 elements that could be brought back in a future Zelda game. Now, with the recent game to the Kingdom being quite unanimously being a smash success, being several years in development and just just getting more hype as before its release date, I would say for a future game that we could possibly see in the next few years or so. Like there could be in this video I'll be talking about some elements that could be in the next Zelda game and just talk about that for a bit. So yeah. So for number 5 is it being a new 3D game. Now I know that we just had Tears of the Kingdom, but if we had a new 3D game that could not be like in that could be its own thing, like a new a new 3D game with like new the new Hyrule and new characters, new areas, that kind of thing. It would be cool to see, and yeah, but I feel like this would be probably unlikely because the previous two Zelda games we've had in terms of the mainline games have been 3D games. So I feel like Nintendo would, for a bit, just would probably not be releasing a new 3D game for a long time. Probably maybe a 2D game, something, but I will be talking about a 2D game later in this video. For number 4 is old bosses. Now, I know that both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom brought back old bosses or made old enemies become mini bosses in a way. Like we got the Hinoxes slash Downoxes, we got as well as the Hinoxes. I said the Hinoxes already. The Gleeoks as well. But for like a future game, maybe like something like Moldorm or maybe a boss that nobody really remembers. Like I don't know how to remember the name of the boss from the original Zelda game, but it's this sort of like singular eye and this sort of spinning top sort of thing. I don't 100% remember the name, but that boss could be brought back in a new game. Maybe Manhandler, because the only time we've seen Manhandler being a sort of Zelda game was in the original Hyrule Warriors game, as well as it being in the 3DS version and as well as the definitive version of the game. And it would be interesting to see Manhandler being brought back in a future game, like whether that's being in a new 2D game or in a new 3D game. It would be cool to see how old bosses would be interpreted in future games and how you would be able to fight them, because you can fight, because like with Hinox, no, the Hinox, like with the Gleeok, for example, because those bosses have elemental variants, you could take them out, by either taking out their heads or by using, whether you're going against the fire or ice versions of Gleeok, you could use either flame key cyballs or ice key cyballs, depending on which version you fought of Gleeok. So maybe that could be something that could be done with old bosses like Manhandler. For number 3 is bringing back more traditional items. Now, we did kind of get that with the bombs in Tears of the Kingdom, because we got the bomb flowers, and I feel like that was like something like that, like kind of like putting the bombs in a new version of the game, or having bombs in a new playstyle, that being the whole fuse mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom. But I feel like if we had like more old traditional items like the boomerang, the claw shots or the hook shots, or the magnet glove. I think that was in one of the Zelda games, or the flame or the ice rods. Bring them back in. And yes, I know that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild had elements of that, whether it's in depending on which game you have. But I feel like in a new game, like if it's a 2D game, we could have the fire and ice rods with the whole magic system that previous games have had, and maybe in a 3D game we could have like the hook shot, the claw shots, and yeah, because I feel like and I understand the whole thing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was exploring, finding what you get, and using the materials and stuff that you have to your advantage against enemies. But I feel like with if we had old items, that would be interesting, and especially if they're a 2D game, it would be cool to see like how these old items would react in that sort of sense, and how, as well as a 3D game, how they would react in that setting. So yeah, it would be cool to see something like the claw shots being brought back again, because they've only been in two Zelda games, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, and we've seen a lot of the hook shots. Like, I know the claw shots are basically a hook shot, but you get two of them. But I feel like we've seen a lot of the claw shots, the hook shots, and I feel like I would be cool to see more of the claw shots. So if we did get to see old items returning in a future game. For number 2 is a 2D remake. Now, the last 2D remake that we've had was Link's Awakening that we got a few years ago. I think it was 2020, around 2019 or something. I could be 20. I think it was around the early 2020s or so. But yeah, it would be cool to see another 2D remake. Maybe the original Zelda game or Zelda 2. Maybe. Probably not A Link to the Past, because we kind of got something like a remake in the form of A Link Between Worlds. So I highly doubt that we'll probably get to see a remake of A Link to the Past when there's A Link Between Worlds. So yeah, so I think if we do get to see a 2D remake of an old Zelda game, we could see something like, as I said before, either Zelda 1, Zelda 2, or the Oracle games, or the Minish Cap, and it would be cool to see how those games would do in a sort of like Link's Awakening remake sort of style, because I feel like what makes the Link's Awakening remake, I would say, fun, and sort of fun in sort of like a Link's Awakening remake kind of way. It's like how the game looks, because the game, it feels like its own thing, even though it is a remake of Link's Awakening. I feel like that particular remake was interesting in a way, because like it was an old game being brought to modern consoles in like a new way, and I feel like we could see something similar, like with the first two Zelda games or something like that, or with the Oracle games, or the Minish Cap, or whatever. And maybe we could see something like a Four Swords or Four Swords of Adventures remake. Like, it'll be a full-on remake, but keep a lot of the elements, and like maybe keep like have a similar art style for the Four Sword games, but more updated for modern consoles like the Switch. Like, have it more playable, because I feel, because from what I remember, you had to have like four people on one GameCube console, I believe, if I remember. Because I think I heard something about the GameCube, or about like how Forza Adventures had to have like four people, or have like interact with the game and stuff like that. So maybe if Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures were remade, it could have like an online feature, maybe something like that. So that'd be something cool to see. And for number 1, it's a new 2D game. Now I feel like a new 2D game would be a breath of fresh air, I would say, because we haven't had, from what I remember, we haven't had like a full-on 2D sort of game since I believe either I would feel like a link between worlds, or maybe the DS games, that being Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. One of those games, I feel like A Link Between Worlds was the last 2D quote unquote game, because that game, even though it had 3D sort of graphics, it was more 2D, because like you have to think of 2D mechanics in a 3D layout in a sort of sense. So yeah, I feel like if we have a new game, a new 2D game, that would be something interesting. And you're probably thinking, do we have the 2D Zelda Link's Awakening remake? Technically, yes, but in terms of a proper non-remake kind of game, the last ones will probably A Link Between Worlds or the DS game. So it's one of those two. But I feel like a new 2D game it would slow things down a bit from the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom hype that has been going on for the last few years. And yeah, and then if we get a new 2D game with new characters, a new world, maybe a new Demon King or whatever, it'll like just slow the brakes down a bit, I would feel like, and just probably help us, like, just it'll just slow down for a bit, and just slow down a bit until like the next 3D game comes out. And yeah, I feel like a new 2D game is probably very, very likely in the next, I would say, year and a half, maybe two, stretching a bit. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a new 2D game, and just experiencing just what a new 2D game would look like. So yeah. So those are my top 5 elements that we could see in a new Zelda game. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.